All right. Well, welcome back to Claims Denied, a hospitality podcast talking about the business of healthcare and healthcare transformation. Super excited to be joined by Sean Duffy today, CEO and co-founder of Omada Health. Sean, thanks so much for being on the podcast. How does it feel to be on the hospitality podcast?
Dreams do come true. Yeah, always a pleasure to hang out with you, Blake, and excited for the conversation.
Yeah, I know you've been asking just for years and years when I would be putting this out.
It's just like the one missing thing on my resume.
Right. Yeah, and healthcare really needs. It'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, healthcare really needs another healthcare podcast. So I decided to throw my hat
with you in hospitality hosting it does.
You flatter me. All right. Enough about me. Sean, would love for you to just kind of, maybe we can start with, a brief background from you real quick, and maybe, an interesting hobby or two you like to partake in, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I'll be super brief because I'm sure people want to, dig into the business, but let's see. Yeah. So background to me, I founded Omada Health while in medical school. So worked in tech at Google for a couple of years. Wanted to do something at the intersection between tech and healthcare, and went to medical school, enrolled in Harvard's MD MBA program, and well in that, just saw an issue, and the issue is that too many Americans, are getting care in the wrong way for today's diseases, and the visit model that we're all stuck in, that we're all handcuffed in, doesn't work for the 156 million Americans, suffering with chronic disease, and so the Omada idea was to kind of create a different care model, one that created longitudinal touch points with patients, one that filled that gap between visits, and that's what we're known as a between visit provider.
Awesome. And
hobby. Let's see, what are fun ones? I've got two kids now, so they're the hobbies. Your hobbies change a little bit, but I like to build FPV drones. So first person view drones, the ones where you kind of put goggles on your face and, plug them in a computer and try to program all the mechanics, the physics, and you solder them together. It's kind of a fun, it's like video games with consequences, but you get to play with hardware, a little bit of electronics, software. It's just an absolute blast for anybody who wants to get into it. Couldn't recommend it enough.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It must feel kind of surreal to, I remember maybe it was during like COVID time frame. There was like drone racing on ESPN or something, because like nothing else could be published because there were no sports or whatever. Yeah. Have you ever participated in a drone race?
I have. Yeah, I have. I tried. I signed up for one and I just got worked. There's awesome. Some incredible pilots. It's very hard to do.
So yeah, what's the skill involved with that? Is it just kind of like you need to know like the wind, or is it indoors, or like aerodynamics?
The issue. So this is the opposite of flying a DJI drone, where they kind of protect you from like going upside down. So you're able to rotate your drone on all axes, and of course the drone has no lift. So if you're kind of ripping at 60 miles an hour, and all of a sudden you find yourself upside down, you're in the ground in a millisecond. So and the controls are super touchy. In fact, it's a fool's errand to try to fly a drone without spending hours and hours and hours on a simulator. So before I even let myself into the wild with a real drone, I did 20 hours on the sim, and it's very technical. So that's what makes it fun, and you feel, because the video feed is very low latency, so you feel like you're a fighter pilot on this like mini jet flying between tree branches, doing tricks. It is a riot.
Yeah, that's got to be exhilarating.
Next time you're Bay Area bound, we'll take you out.
I'd love to. Yeah. So I'm curious. Just last question on this. What's your favorite part of SF to do drone? Flying.
You can't do it at SF, so you've got to go to the burbs.
Oh, is that no-fly zone?
On various blogs, there's kind of places that have been tagged. My favorite is this park in Concord called Concord Community Park. It's got kind of enough open space, and you don't want to do it near people because it's pretty dangerous. I mean, they're heavy, and they go fast. So you have to kind of tread carefully relative to safety.
Okay. Something else I think is interesting about just like your background is that you were a writer, correct? Or I guess you are a writer.
It's funny. That's hilarious. It's a little known. I used to follow this medical technology blog called MedGadget that I loved. And at one point, I just kind of emailed the editor. I was like, hey, this is fun for me. Any chance you want somebody to write some pieces? And so, would occasionally see something neat, write about it, cover conferences. But that was a little bit of just a kind of for fun on the side.
Yeah, but still curious, what was there an article or what was your favorite thing to write about?
Well, the funny, one, ironically, it led to Omada in a weird way. A little known story. I was covering TEDMed. TED used to have a conference called TEDMed back in the day. I was kind of dispatched to cover it, and I'd write these kind of reports. And I was in like the line for shrimp cocktail or something, and standing next to this person from IDEO, one of the early founders named Dennis, and we just hit it off and sat and had lunch. And I'd always respected the company. Fast forward, while in medical school, I was in Harvard's MD MBA. And as you progress through the program, students typically are either asked to or take an internship that blends business and medicine. I was like, what would be fun? Like, it'd be great to be an admin in a hospital and spend some time at Brigham or MGH, but I'm interested in technology and design and healthcare and those intersections. So I just emailed Dennis, any chance you've ever had a medical school intern? And didn't hear back, and emailed again and didn't hear back. And then, fast forward, some person at IDEO named Mike Mouskowitz found my resume on the copy room floor. And apparently Dennis had printed it out and emailed me like, why is a med school student interested in IDEO? And so it turned into an internship. Now they have I think they still kind of call it the Sean Duffy chair, like a medical school intern or clinician intern, helping on healthcare transformation projects. So TEDMed and the writing kind of led to Omada.
And now for that person, they put that resume on the floor, to select that person in the future.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Yeah, just all you got to do to get a job is make sure somehow your resume just falls to the floor of the copy room, and that's a secret for success.
Well, maybe there's like a lesson with the drones too, like make your resume more aerodynamic so it like flies.
There we go. It flies to the right place.
Yeah. Okay. Pleasantries aside, would love to dive into, obviously, you run a company, so I guess we can talk about that a little bit. Omada, and as of this recording, you just came back from, the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference based in SF, and curious just for your perspective on, how you think that conference went for you, and just the general vibe around, since it's such an investor-driven conference and lots of, focused on opportunities and where to put capital and all those things. What was just kind of like the general consensus and vibe and conversation coming from that conference?
Well, it was a super fun one. I mean, it's it was the first one as a public company, and it's certainly useful when you're private. I would say it's significantly more useful when you're public because a lot of the investors that come, they're public. I mean, that's kind of the target, if you will. So it's fun because when you're private, you meet some incredible investors, and they're like, well, seems like any business, like, come back to me if you ever go public. It's like, glad we spent, so it's
sure.
So it's nice. You can meet folks that have open questions about the business. You can meet folks that are shareholders. Equally, I think when you are public, a little bit of a bigger megaphone, so it makes the BD environment and conversations a little bit more robust. So it was a really fun one. And there's just like what's neat about it is it covers such a gambit of life sciences, biotech, healthcare services, you name it, and so you get a lot of interesting conversations ranging from like molecule chirality of a therapeutic to the future of value-based care. So wide spectrum.
Yeah. So in those conversations, was there a specific company that kind of interested you that you hadn't heard about before?
It's funny. You live, when you're in my seat, like you live and breathe like Omada. Like every single thing you do, every single meeting you take, every single ounce of time and energy has to be optimized to like helping support your mission. So it's but it was fun. I wish I could kind of recap them. What is fun is the like cocktail hour conversations, and my favorite ones are always the super geeky ones that bring me back to the, in undergrad and my pre-med and, the biochemistry classes of these just miracles. It's like, it's a part where I don't get to engage a ton, obviously, in my remit, but just these incredible miracles of science that are being thought of, produced, worked on at a day-to-day basis. So those are some of the fun ones.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I would guess, you kind of seen like the eventual downstream effects of those innovations in life sciences, right? Like, for instance, like GLP-1 would be one that's kind of been impacted you guys. But
yeah, that didn't come up at all in the in any conversations.
Not at all. Wow, shocking.
Not at all.
The investors, that's some alpha there for investors.
To tap into that. Exactly. By the way, there are these medicines. They're called GLP-1s.
Yeah. Okay. So would love to back
Actually,
up
they're
real quick.
incretins. Nobody, yeah, they wouldn't even. Yeah, it's funny. GLP-1 is an incretin, so the real. If you want to be an ace out there and show off to friends, you don't even call them GLP-1s. You call it category incretins.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you talked about, this is your first go at the JP Morgan as a public company. And, you very recently gone public, right? Went public last year. So I'm just curious for you, like, what's been the underrated aspects of, being a public company, like that transition, maybe both just personally, but also professionally?
Yeah, we had a nice blessing, at Omada, in that there was some I use the word stagnation in the IPO markets in our space, so there wasn't a lot of activity for a couple of years, and so that led us to be in a position where we could really prepare. And my aspiration in going public that I've always shared with the teams is that it doesn't feel all too different. Because I actually think that for entrepreneurs, that should be the compass on if you feel your business is ready. The hope is that it doesn't feel that different, because you don't want it to be a huge shock to the system. Like it's, your core mission shouldn't change at all. I mean, Omada's mission is to bend the curve, of disease. That we do that by supporting customers, by supporting members. None of that should change. You do have to prep and build more discipline and build a whole sorts of kind of like ancillary capability. And so we had time to do it. I mean, we hired incredible head of IR. We've made sure that we had kind of the right constitution of the board to support the company while going public. Just so that was kind of great. And it's more time with investors, as they always say. I mean, kind of expected that. And thankfully, I'm blessed with enough public company CEO friends that got a little bit of a rapid fire boot camp of some of the ins and outs. But it's been less different than I expected. Which was an interesting reflection. I mean, the pace has always been high at Omada. It remains high as a public company. We've always endeavored to build, a mature, disciplined, performant organization. That's the expectations when you're public. That was the expectations we had on the teams when we're private. So it's been less different, actually. You've got stock price out there, but like what, you kind of, expect that. And, the goal is just to continue to, perform and execute, so it's not all too different.
Yeah. Okay. And that's interesting. And, just in my past life, I was a, healthcare consultant and valuation analyst and those sorts of things. And it seemed like there's kind of, public companies come in waves in healthcare, and it's like some services companies go public and then the quarterly kind of grind takes them out and then they go private, those sorts of things. So I'm curious for you, you've talked about how you just mentioned like it's kind of business as usual for you guys. Like you've got the high pace environments and that cultural expectation. But how do you kind of reconcile the quarterly grind with like more the industry norm of kind of working in decades, right? And how things play out over time. And also like how do you work, basically, your company value is constantly, liquid and fluctuating. And it's like, oh gosh, I made this decision and now my stock price is down or whatever. Like, how do you kind of grapple with those dynamics?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, on the quarterly one and just kind of the kind of germane to the comments I shared, if you're like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so different when we're public, it probably means maybe the business isn't ready and you don't feel ready. So you should have the compass too, I think, be such that it's not, there's going to be tunes, obviously, and things that are different, but it shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm in a new company. It should feel like, all right, just a continuation of kind of a steady, connecting dots on, with a line. I think it's, the first, you'll find camps. You've got like the Reed Hastings, which is like, man, you build a better business when you're public. You've got like the Michael Dells, which is like stay private forever. Why would you ever go public? Like you can get capital on the private markets. I think the journey we've been on toward independence and heading toward being a public company, I think it's made Omada a stronger business. So I've always a little bit more, been more oriented toward the Reed Hastings camp. Obviously it depends on your business model. We love our business model. We talk a lot about the visibility we get, the value we get from customers that are in the rear view mirror. As we look toward the windshield. So we think we have the revenue and the enterprise like characteristics of the sort of company that can thrive in the public markets, and so that that always allows you to rest in confidence that the time was right for you to do it. But I think it's about finding the right shareholders, and you can paint and do paint a long-term mission. And then the second order of question is, do they expect you to perform? Like, of course. So did our board, and so did we on the private side too. So, I think that should be the aim always.
Yeah, no matter whether you're private or public, you always have a vested interest to, grow your business and make sure you're making it sustainable, but also, achieving your mission and those sorts of things. So that makes sense that that's all kind of still in alignment. And you kind of dove into your business model a little bit there. Could you just break down for me, maybe, Omada's 2025, obviously lots of change, lots of growth and strategic decisions. GLP-1s come to mind and other kind of maybe tech decisions and those sorts of things. How would you kind of rate your 2025 and kind of walk me through, the rationale behind those?
Yeah, for sure. So pulling up for those who are maybe a little bit less familiar with Omada, as shared in my intro, I mean, we are a provider. We're a between visit provider. So we've kind of designed a care model that we believe is tailor made, for conditions that really don't work in the visit by visit structure. And began our journey in prediabetes and weight and obesity, where it's just obvious that day-to-day longitudinal support and a feeling of like, wow, I've got someone in a care team in my corner, in my pocket really matters. That was kind of the journey from day one. And then we've expanded from there to diabetes, to hypertension to MSK care, but all these fit the same clinical rubric of you really need that day-to-day support. And so the average Omada member, when they sign up, we equip them with hardware, connected devices like a scale, blood pressure cuff, glucometer. We pair them with their care teams, folks like certified diabetes care and education specialists, health coaches, LCSWs in background. They get to know our members. And then we've got this really neat software experience that ties the room together with goal setting, content, community, you name it. So it is a IT enabled service, and we're leveraging, of course, AI and all these cool technologies. But we think the blend of people and tech, is a sweet spot. And then we bill as a provider. So that was pretty unique, and that was I guess a business model innovation. And that when I founded Omada, a lot of companies that were kind of yesterday's digital health would charge a buck across your whole population, like a PPM, PMPM. Mm-hmm. And the issue I always had with that was it didn't feel that was maximally aligned with your clients. Because for the company, the more people that get in, it would compress your margins. Mm. And you as an organization like Omada, you should be incentivized to help as many people as possible because the unit of value is how you help people. And so, we had kind of created this unique, business model. I took our trials to the American Medical Association, way back in the day, got them to issue this Cat 3 CPT code that allows us to just bill. It's like billing infrastructure, so that we work with employers and plans. Though we have a monthly fee as our business model, it's kind of a monthly fee that includes everything, and it's a neat value-based business model. We can file it through fee-for-service claims because it allows you to be treated and thought of as kind of a proper part of the healthcare system. And for the customers, they love it because it's like, oh wow, this finally is a neat offering that complements the care that my employees or plan members are getting, and it fits within my systems and rubric. And then from an opportunity standpoint, I recognize very early on that the real transformational market opportunity was to make sure that you fit into the financial flows in the same way as an HCA, or Dennett, or an Eli Lilly, because that's where, at the end of the day, that's where if you look at companies, that's where kind of market cap is, and so that's the business model.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And so maybe shifting into 2025 specifically.
Yep.
Walk me through, because when we had lunch before and we talked about kind of how, hey, I don't want to really dive into GLP-1 prescribing and those sorts of things. Can you walk me through kind of how that decision played out since that conversation and kind of evolution of the Omada business model from that point?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, and I'd forgotten you asked about 2025. So the first thing to share the punchline, on the Monday of the JP Morgan conference, we did, share our preliminary, and audited, performance for the quarter of the year. And, for the year, the midpoint of the range we put out was $257 million in revenues, which is 52% year-over-year growth. So we're very proud of that. And on the panel, moderated by Lisa Gill, or the presentation moderated by Lisa Gill, the big question was like, well, what happened? And so that and that kind of leads to your question on strategy. The goal for Omada, and obviously this is a goal every year, is to achieve a world where we're viewed as having highly differentiated, unique, broadened capabilities, to meet a kind of moment in time in a kind of a market need. And from the capability side, we've spent over a decade, investing in the breadth of what we do. I described a little bit of it, but equally investing in, the proof that, we are delivering what our clients are asking us to. So we now have 30 peer-reviewed publications. These range from observational trials to randomized controlled trials. Many of them are health economic publications showing the kind of economic value of what we do. And so that's been supported. And then the big question that we've been helping answer for buyers recently is GLPs, which you already kind of jumped to. Omada works with employers and plans. We've got over 2,000 of them as customers. And those who have chosen to cover GLP-1s for obesity started to lean on us years ago and say, look, like the costs are going up here. Equally, I look at the real world data, and there's a lot of folks that stop the meds, regain weight. There's I worry that, my gosh, couldn't my employees keep fast food as a daily driver and still be successful? Like, would it make sense to, help support, lifestyle alongside it to maximize the value of a GLP? And so, we had our care track. That was kind of the first couple of years of our care track, which is how do we maximize weight loss while on med? And then for those members who kind of raise their hands and say, my goal is actually to see if I'm able to, get off the med and stay successful, we can have an honest conversation that A, that's going to be hard, but it's not your destiny. And B, that's why we need to use this on therapy window to really, maximize your chance of success there. And so that's been amazing. I mean, the amount of member stories that show right in front of us that these meds can actually be a behavioral catalyst are remarkable. I mean, you can create a sense of positivity, momentum, and hope and grab that. The ball rolls down the hill, grab it, and kind of add inertia such that people are more open-minded to thinking about kind of a week in review of their eating, thinking about physical activity and exercise and strength training and things that they may have not done before, if you can seize it. And so that's our job. So we hadn't prescribed the meds. That was by design. Although, ages ago we had experimented with med titration. I mean, we prescribed CGMs, at Omada. But we strategically hadn't, and to be honest, I don't think we would have needed to if the landscape stayed simple, which was two injectables, roughly same price point, similar-ish outcomes profile, but the med's not simple anymore. We're leaving one era and entering a new in GLPs. And I mean, at JPM, the Lilly panel, they highlighted they have 24 incretins in development. 24, one company. So fast forward a couple of years, some people are going to be on single agonist, dual agonist, triagonist. There's going to be multiple orals. Obviously subject to approval. These meds are probably going to be at different price points. Even maybe the doses are going to be at different price points. And so as we listened to our buyers and future casted where we felt the markets were going to go, we were like, what we need to do? We need to prescribe, because that complexity is the first burden that's going to fall is on our members. They're going to be asking us, what the heck? Now there's like 70 choices of GLPs. What do I do? Which one should I be on? Why? I didn't like that one. Should I go to that? So we need to be sophisticated based on our data, our segmentation, the demographics, the behavioral graphics, on which GLP, may actually produce the net, best benefit and value, for that member. And then in order to optimize meds, we're going to need to have prescribing capabilities to change the meds. And so that became quickly obvious. And equally, the employers loved that, I really want Omada alongside. It seems like it's a more integrated experience if it's closely attached to the script. So that led to the conclusion, and then we announced that in our earnings, our Q3 earnings call in November last year.
Yeah, and I mean the thesis makes sense, right? Like having a more integrated obesity, care experience as a chronic disease makes sense, and you have from what I've seen, in your investor presentations and so forth, is using Omada results in better outcomes as far as weight loss, retention, and those sorts of things. Correct?
Yeah.
That's great. I'm curious around the prescribing part. Are you employing docs, or like how does kind of like that piece work?
For that, what we've kind of announced is that we're going to lean on kind of a great third party partner that'll be embedded. This is not too dissimilar to how we do CGMs. It'll be embedded within the Omada experience. And so, the North Star there is, member experience and simplicity, plus like scale, quality, reliability. And there are many awesome organizations that can serve that need. It kind of pointed us to say, look, do we really need to hire, the physicians ourselves? Like, no, there's plenty of awesome organizations that have all the PC structure. Could we? Of course, but it's, the answer was no, we didn't feel like we needed to. And then we have, of course, our like entire clinical team creating, the clinical vision, in governance and background.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious, just because, that is like an outsourced decision, and there's some, I would guess, like a liability around that. Like obviously you're vetting that, but how do you vet that risk, and what went into that partnership selection?
Oh yeah, we were in kind of a thorough process here and RFP, and met with a number of folks that we felt could do a credible job, and also evaluated should we do it ourselves too. In the core compass was number one, quality. And safety and clinical credibility, and that's like the number one. Like trust with our members and our buyers like is paramount. So that was kind of the one. And you do see like a diversion, especially in the GLP space, like pretty wide breadth of capabilities aligned with that vector. And then just member experience. Does the technology allow us to make it such that it's really simple? Continues to, what I always say is, pass the Sean Duffy's mom test, which is my mom's great with using an app, but she's probably not pairing a Wi-Fi skill with her home network. Like we need to make sure that it's just very simple and easy for everybody.
I love that. I'm gonna steal that term, the Sean Duffy mom test. And the reason why I ask is you kind of alluded to it, but it seems like there's always a wild west of healthcare, and right now with the D2C kind of telehealth model, it's like people are saying, how can I get my hands on GLP-1s and, the compounded drugs or whatever it is? And maybe there's like this kind of gray market. So I'm curious, maybe folks go onto the Omada platform and they're like, hey, I just want GLP-1s, right? Like America loves drugs. They just want to lose their weight that way and whatever. And have you kind of experienced that? And if so, how do you kind of deal with that kind of member?
Yeah, we do. So the strategy for Omada, we're an enterprise company. We're going to stay enterprise, and we're going to stick to the branded meds. So this is, we're not in net, the compounded world is not for us.
I didn't mean to insinuate you wouldn't do that.
No, for sure. But that's kind of the first thing to cover. There's the enterprise side, and then there's the consumer side. In the enterprise side, what our customers are asking us to do at the end of the day, it's funny. They view us as a GLP-1 value maximizer. It's interesting. Like they don't view us as like a cost on top of the med. They view us as like, wow, a way to responsibly maximize the value of the investments that they're making in the medicine. And part of what that maximization includes is really trying to unpack people's goals. So per your point, someone comes in, says, I want the med, I don't want this Omada thing. It's like, well, why do you want the med? Tell me, Blake. They're like, well, I want to lose weight. Wonderful. How much weight do you want to lose? How do you want to feel while losing weight? Did you know that we have a lot of success in helping people lose even more weight while on these medicines? Let me show you some case studies and some testimonials here. And you know what I mean? And the neat thing is again, this is the inertia comment. These meds are such a remarkable intersection between biology and behavior. Like a vaccine, does a vaccine need like a services, tech layer on top? Like, of course not. Like GLP-1s, I mean, you're dealing with psychology, eating behavior, side effect profiles, like, like individual biology based on kind of responders, no responders, you name it. So, you're in a neat place when supporting someone alongside the med to leverage momentum. Because the average person, on the med is, they clearly don't want to be overweight. I mean, imagine you have a BMI of 43 and you've tried everything, and you have perhaps a negative self-image. You are feeling saddened with your health trajectory. In some instances, you feel just resigned that you're on a bad health trajectory, and all of a sudden there's this glimmer of hope, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I'm heading actually toward more versus less health. And that opens the door to like a mindset shift. And you can grab that and say, Blake, wonderful. Like, let's turn success into more success. Tell me about, like, just don't, with no judgment at all. Tell me about, like, what's a week in your life of eating? Where do you live? When do you get your foods? What do you like? What is your spouse like? What are your kids like? How do you plan? Do you ever find yourself like, oh my gosh, I'm pressed and hadn't thought about dinner until 10 minutes before dinner? Like, what's like, let's kind of unpack. And you get an open mind, and same with activity, and same with other care behaviors, and same with other care plans generally. And it's like, oh, you don't have a primary care dog. Have you ever thought? So it's so you really can take the holistic, mindset that'll a little bit of glimmer of hope toward health, that a GLP-1 can help start and run with it to create more, outcomes.
Yeah. And I feel like that extends beyond obesity too, right? For Omada and chronic disease management. But I know we've talked about this in the past, but it's almost like you have like an integrated mental health component like to your model, right? Because you got this care team that actually is listening to this person who, like you said, maybe has tried a bunch of things and, maybe is an overeater or like an addict and those sorts of things. And there's a lot of shame attached to that. And they don't want to engage, right? And then all of a sudden maybe they have this benefit through their employer or whatever it is, and all of a sudden, they're able to access that. And so maybe would love for you to maybe expand on kind of just the, how to invoke behavior change in your members, and the community aspect and the mental health aspect, and how that all kind of integrates.
Oh, for sure. And it's like far more psychology than knowledge. I mean, if it was knowledge alone, then we wouldn't have an obesity issue. I think in my like founder's letter, the S1, I kind of described Omada as the anti-pamphlet. Because it's like the average patient interaction is like, hey, here's your med, come back in 6 months. Here's a pamphlet on how to eat better. Go do it. Don't forget to check your sugars. Don't forget to exercise. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And there's so many like traps. And it's literally, it's just the thousands of tiny details that matter. But I can give kind of a couple examples of the biggest traps that we help our members avoid. The first is like overdoing it. It's often we'll get these members with a ton of momentum and be like, hey, like I'm here, I'm ready, I'm going to do it. The new me's coming. I'm hitting the gym. I got a gym membership and I'm going to go every day this week. And we're like, no, don't.
Well, it's like the New Year's resolution effect, right? Like, yeah, I'm going to be gung ho, and then you burn out.
Yeah. People try to overdo it. And then you feel discouraged and you set unrealistic expectations and it doesn't fit into your lifestyle and your norms. And it's like, so that doesn't work. And so and you see the same thing with eating. It's like, especially with restrictive diets. I mean, my gosh, as over the decade of Omada, how many like flies and falls have we seen in the diet, zeitgeist world of like today's flavor is Whole30, then it's keto, then it's, you name it. That never works. You need to have a positive psychology around nutrient density, helping people support what more things they could eat that they like that have more nutrients. And it's like, and then the positive psychology around eating more of that displaces what you would have eaten otherwise. So there's an art to it. There's a huge art to it. And every time we build anything in Omada, we have kind of a little pod on our clinical team that like leverage and scour and the behavioral science literature. To like what within this feature set, what would make the most sense here behaviorally, and that tends to work because it's an identity thing. Like it's you've probably gone through this yourself. I know I have. It's like like I don't touch. I haven't like drunk soda, and I don't even know like decades. But like I'm not a person who drinks soda. But at some point I did, and I don't know when that flip happened. But it's like tied into the identity. And so there's this like grocery cart story that occasionally pops up at Omada, and I think it's the best example of it, where we'll have our members tell us like, I had this crazy experience. I was at the grocery store, and I'm at the checkout line. And I looked at the cart in front of me, and I found myself judging that person. Like, how could you feed that to your family? But then I only realized that literally like 6 months ago, that was me. And like, that is the unlocked. It's like an identity shift where it's not like I'm trying to do something differently. I'm just trying to be me. And that's it's completely doable to do, but it requires a ton of listening, unpacking goals, a very, very gentle experience, never telling people what to do. And so that's kind of the art, and and that's true with a lot of chronic diseases, and so that's where our capabilities really shine in our view.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I appreciate you unpacking that for me, and something you mentioned that I'd love to double click on is kind of, you're working with your clinical team and looking at the behavioral science and, building new features or whatever that is. So I'm curious, from a technology standpoint, one, what technology, kind of have you built to support, clinical teams or chronic disease management, et cetera, your business functions? And two, how is AI kind of, getting infused into those functions?
No, for sure. So we've taken a pretty holistic approach at Omada, like, full stack, building all the needed pieces. And sometimes I joke that we have 9 digital health companies in one, because you can find companies in our capabilities. There's like food tracking companies, activity tracking companies. There's health education, content companies. There's health community companies. There's coaching companies. There's biometric medical, like the remote monitoring companies. I mean, you name it. So EHR companies. The early reflection was that, like, oh my gosh, it is so hard to get any outcome at all in the space. We have to build everything. That was just like just sitting in homes of people with diabetes, obesity, prediabetes in the early days. Like, it was such obvious how hard the challenge was and how everything needed to be integrated to create the right sort of care model. So that was the compass. And then we used to sit there, my co-founder and I remember these moments in Dolores Park. We're like dreaming about what software could maybe someday do. And, I had worked at Google prior, and then all of a sudden AI comes, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's like, let's dust off that wish list that was like the maybe someday, and let's just rapidly check it off. And so it's been so fun. And it's so fun to do it in a way that I think is germane to like Omada's reputation, which is around thoughtfulness and substance. Like, it's not like reflexively, oh, we had a chatbot, we're an AI company. Like, I don't think that works. It's like, what specifically do you need the AI to do for your members, for your care teams? And so we've launched a whole lot of features. There's a really cool like AWS publication. I think we got like 9 or 10 models like in production with different use cases, like fine-tuned in different ways. We've got, they're called Omada Spark. We've got our nutritional, model that's like fine-tuned on, 3 million foods from over 150 countries. And, to give you an example of like what today's care team wouldn't do today that they would have done yesterday is, if I was your coach and, and I got a message from Lake and it said, hey, I'm just thinking, I'm thinking Thursday, like doing a fish recipe, any ideas? I want to be responsive. In yesterday's world, we had a whole library of like recipes, it's pretty cool, but I would kind of dust that off. I would look at your clinical profile and remind myself of, your conditions. I would try to remember your likes and your dislikes and pick the right thing from the library, or if not, kind of make you one. In today's world, I turf it to our nutritional agent. And it quickly makes a recipe.
Yeah, that's super
with
cool.
all the context needed. It knows all the interactions we've had. It knows your current health status, your trajectory, your likes. It looks back and reminds itself that at one point you said that like my husband hates swordfish, and it spits out what's needed. And so that's a win across the board, because it's like, it's not high value from a task standpoint, and the coach can feel like they have like a report. It's like they have like a team member that they delegate the work to, and it's faster, and it's better. So it's like there's this art, like in medical school, they always talk about the art and science of medicine, and it's like the way I've begun to think about it is, you cast out a vision here, and the science is obviously the models. Like, will a model be better at understanding a decade of the latest oncology research, like than the person? Like, of course. And the art of how to apply that against like human judgment, against like, and frankly, just because people are complex people and they like to feel cared for, and they have like preconceptions and biases, and like the people are the are the art, with the science applied. So we're living that on a daily basis.
Yeah, I love that. That's super cool, and looking forward to how you guys continue to leverage AI. But on that note, obviously you've had some great financial results, and your gross margins have expanded. And in my opinion, it seems like with the this dawn of AI, that the kind of original tech-enabled services thesis is kind of back and playing out, in the sense that, hey, you in healthcare as a service, you can leverage technology and actually like expand your margins, right? So I'm curious, do you agree with that point? And two, where, if anywhere, are you seeing that kind of play out at Omada?
Yeah, no, and we're certainly proud of the margin, progress. I mean, in Q3 of last year, which you shared on November earnings, it was around 68%. So we're we're kind of in the upper 60s territory, at least as of that quarter. So that's great. The how is not just efficiency but personalization. It's also product mix too. So over time, as we've expanded into diabetes and hypertension and other care areas, the ARPU is a little bit higher, and the gross margin profile is slightly different. So you get kind of a little bit of a margin tailwind just generally based on the nature of like the pricing model, the various conditions. But you do need to obviously leverage your resources and your care teams, as efficiently as possible here. And then the compass, of course, is to and for Omada, this is great, is to ensure that you're never compromising what works. Mm-hmm. Because Omada only charges when people are continuing to use what we do. So it's like the neat thing. I actually always view efficiency as interesting, but engagement as more interesting relative to like upside potential for the business. Because if people stick with us longer, all that drops to EBITDA, and that improves our margin profile. Because you have more revenue on the same cost structure. So it's that's so the alignment's awesome. It's not about like how much efficiency can we eke out of this individual care team member. It's how can we create just the most remarkably engaging, interesting experience leveraging the technologies that allow people to stay in longer, and that expands margins. So that's kind of one of the unique things about the business that we love.
So it's less about, to kind of restate that, like your care team member going from 50 members to 2,000 or whatever. I don't know, just throwing out numbers. It's more about, hey, these members are more engaged, and so therefore we can plug them into more services that they need, and that kind of permeates throughout the organization. Is that kind of the right way to think about it?
Well, yeah, and I mean it's kind of a planning orientation. It's like the I think you started the question with like IT enabled services are maybe getting back in vogue, and I've seen various flavors of that over the last decade, and I've never cared because it's like it's like enduring success for a business like Omada is enduring trust with clients and members and outcomes. And so it's like, well, it does seem that in order to move the needle and ultimately bend the curve, we will need a combination of like hardware, people, technology, the EH. So it's like, so great. All of a sudden, the output of that is it seems like we're an IT double service. It's not like, that's no different with how we're thinking about utilization of the care team members. It's like, what are they doing? What are they doing that they like to do? What are they doing that they dislike to do? If they dislike that and they think that's a time waster, can we automate that? And the output of that is efficiency. And if the output of efficiency means a larger, remit of who you can support, great. But we don't start with that as the hypothesis. We look at the micro, like bits and pieces of the work and what they're doing to support the member to back into what we can do.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Love that framing. Okay, maybe a final question on AI, then I'll cool my jets. But it is exciting to talk about.
Oh,
I'm
for sure.
sure you saw the announcements from OpenAI and
Yep.
Anthropic around both the B2B but also the consumer play, and maybe there's some hiccups right now with like integrations from what I've seen and those sorts of things. But it seems like there's a renewed attempt, AI enabled attempt, right, with a large consumer centric company in an OpenAI or in Anthropic, which is more B2B maybe, but to recreate kind of like that personal health record, right, and like get people to change their behaviors and upload their lab data and ask questions or whatever and those sorts of things. So I'm curious, like, what's your perspective on that? Do you see that as like a existential business threat to you, as far as like, oh, I'm going to upload my own data and I don't need, somebody like a care team like member like Omada or like anything like that? Or how do you kind of think about that entrance, I guess?
Yeah, no, well, I love it. No, I don't view it as an existential threat. What the way that I think about it is it's kind of the next evolution of the way that people used Google for health. When I was at Google, like health search terms were always near the top of the list. The numbers of people that like, I have an itch in my throat, do I have cancer, like that sort of term. Those sort of searches were really common and remain really common. And so what did Google do? They tried to specialize. They built out like better answers. And it's like, so imagine you're at OpenAI and you're trying to think, how do I provide more value to members? You're going to look at what people search for. And it's going to be no different than Google, because obviously a lot of people are beginning to use LLMs instead, and it's going to be health as a key thing. And so then you're going to think, well, what are the open questions within the health remit and ways to like improve the solutions there and kind of create a vertical. And now what they've launched, I think it's really smart and love that they're doing it, which is it's more of a data safety, privacy, trust product as it stands, where there's like a secondary area with health where it's like creates a data boundary against anything you pull in, either that you put yourself or interface per your comments on leveraging APIs and health data exchanges, and that health container can read the other chats but not the other way around, and so it's really kind of a data privacy product, and then the models leverage the data differently, which I think is awesome. And I consider that kind of the general purpose tool. In fact, I'm sure there's instances where it's like, there's like questions about what they're seeing in, their Omada data. I mean, I'm sure people are like screenshotting things and dropping it in. Like of course, we can embed those technologies within our care experience. All these companies have APIs.
Very cool.
But I think it's awesome. And I mean, the more health data and sophistication and agency brought to the everyday person, the better. Especially with the context of a kind of a crisis in labor supply in the U.S. healthcare system.
Yeah, I love that. And so you see it as more collaborative, and that's a great way to be. And I'm still on the wait list for the ChatGPT little for health thing. So they must not know who I am, So I can't.
They're going to listen to this, and you're about to get an email, I'm sure.
I'm just kidding. Okay. One thing I wanted to ask you about was kind of your relationship with Intermountain, which is, it's a health system. Do you have other health system partnerships? And I guess maybe backing up before that question, what's kind of like what was the genesis of that? I know Intermountain invested in you guys a while back, and you've had a long-standing relationship, but can you kind of break down how maybe that's different than like a different channel partner?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I mean, the go-to-market model are three pillars. It's self-insured employers, health plans and PBMs, and health plans and PBM service channel self-insured employers in our partnerships, or they cover us for their fully insured or government-sponsored lines of business. And then it's integrated health systems, and you've highlighted Intermountain as an example. We're super proud of that. We do work with the integrated systems, like the Kaiser Permanentes of the world, et cetera, as well. Obviously they're able to think about Omada a little bit differently, because an Intermountain, pays for care, provides care. And for them, the genesis was no different than the genesis in other areas. It's like, wow, interesting. Like, it seems that our infrastructure is creating gaps between care. We try to fill them, and with either case management or, just kind of secondary sources, but it's the Omada care experience is quite a bit different. So, it's Omada. In fact, one of the earliest people that I remember a clinical leader at Intermountain ages ago that was like, you know what? You're kind of like our between visit provider. And I chuckled. I was like, hilariously, that's how I've been describing Omada out in the world. And this was before we're so vocal is that it's helping people fit kind of a reference point in what we do, because that's how they viewed us. And that was great because that's how we viewed ourselves. It's always a nice match. And that's how the relationship works. And I love those. And, and hopefully, as who knows, maybe like the CMMI access model, other things like that enable Omada to do deeper work with systems, because it's always so special. Clinicians love it. Patients love it. Everybody wins. Unfortunately, a lot of the world's still fee for service, so that makes it difficult. But we do have dozens of systems as customers for their employees as an employee benefit. And in time, as our coverage grows, as in the universe of what we can do grows, my hope is that we are on a long journey to get us closer and closer to point of care, which is it'd be a really special thing, because docs don't like having the only tool be, hey, come back in 6 months and here's a medicine.
What do you think needs to happen for you to get to that point?
Well, you need enough coverage. Right now, as of the end of 2024, we've kind of shared we've got north of 20 million covered lives. And so those are, in adults or, people in the US that, should they need us, have us as part of their medical benefit. And so that's maybe like roughly 1 in 10 commercially insured adults. That's probably not enough to go to the everyday system and be like, hey, let's be a care partner. Because they're like, oh, shoot, well, that means like 9 in 10 of my patients are going to be like high and dry. And you can't like change practice patterns and behaviors unless you're like more covered. So now that's national. That's not, there is geographic variance in that. So there may be some pockets of the country where, there could be viability there. But I think the coverage landscape growing is what unlocks our ability to work more closely with systems. And if you're listening to this and you're a system executive, I think there's like so many wins for both of us and your patients, even at the current coverage threshold. So always open-minded to a conversation.
Awesome. There you go. Yeah.
And we're not even going to ask you to pay. That's the thing. This is not Omada selling you anything.
I love
this is how can we be a care partner to amplify what you do, on the back of our existing coverage.
Heard it here first. I'm happy to connect you with Sean if you're listening. So you did bring up access, the new CMMI model, and also it seems like just conversation on Capitol Hill around healthcare and make America healthy again. Not to get political or anything like that. Seems to be pretty in line with maybe your goals as a company. So how have you kind of vetted that program and kind of just like the current conversation around chronic disease in America?
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's it's the conversation on chronic disease is a really important one. I worry that it becomes political because it's like chronic disease should be the least political thing on the planet. I mean, it's like it's crippling our country and the globe. And I think thankfully, the average person views it that way. And of course we do at Omada as well. And there's a ton of innovation happening. I mean, you have like, it's funny, this little known thing that I guess not little known. It's like, you've got like entrepreneurs riddled through CMS. And like health tech founders or people that worked at health tech companies. I mean, it's so fascinating. It's like, you've got the likes of like the Abe Sutton, Jacob Schiff, Stan Perlman, like obviously Dan, the Chris Klump, like it's like, Vishal Arora, they've lived in like healthcare, like startups and entrepreneurship, and they're dreaming big, which is neat to see. And so, a lot of the models have come out. They left us with a lot of reading material, over the end of last year, as I'm sure, they did with anybody who's interested in those models. But I applaud it. And a lot of it's very innovative. And Omada has expressed our intent to participate in access. Equally, we kind of don't know and have communicated that we don't know what it means to the business or not yet, because there's a lot of details forthcoming. They've announced the price and and then there's just open questions we'd have to figure out about how the go-to-market would work. But it's awesome. And so we're we're learning, we're listening, and love the attention on chronic and the space, because it's it's an important one.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I imagine that's participating in something like Access, if it turns out to be economically viable and supported and all those things, might serve as a competitive advantage for you guys, considering you have such long-standing data and like performance metrics and outcomes and those sorts and peer-reviewed resources and those sorts of things to kind of prove your worth, because that's kind of the spirit of the model, right? Like kind of, hey, patient is these benchmarks, like in a kind of individual format. Is that kind of how it
Well, yeah,
works?
and one thing we're proud of, it's like we're an enterprise company, so I don't think we'd run Super Bowl ads on Access,
Sure.
so it's but that being said, so the one of the neatest features in my view of the Access model is that the person's primary care physician can participate and bill, up to 100 a year, per patient. If they work with an Access provider, which is great, because as we just talked about, like it's such a slam dunk if we can get services like what we offer closer to the primary care in the medical home, and that's really important, especially in Medicare. And so, we hope that when and if we start having conversations with systems that care for a lot of fee-for-service Medicare beneficiaries or original Medicare beneficiaries, they're like, you know what? If I am going to work with an Access provider, I probably want them to be at scale. I probably want them to have peer-reviewed publications. We got 30. I probably want them to have some of the accreditations that we have to have. We remain the only in our space in diabetes, and that's NCQA accredited for population health programs. And we hope that shines through. And some of the trust that we build in the case of studies we have with the likes of the Intermountains, give us a little like operational expertise in how to really closely partner with them, the system itself.
For sure. Well, looking forward to hearing more from you guys on that and just on Access in general. And I'm sure future models that they're cooking up as we speak.
Exactly. There's a lot of like really creative names.
Yeah. Okay, I got one more healthcare question for you, and it's more just like future based. How do you think about what should we expect from Omada in 2026? What are you guys building? What are you guys thinking about?
Yep.
Leave it open-ended.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, this is probably going to be a recurring joke every year. I joke, look, this is the year of the G's. So that was kind of my joke in 2020, 2025, GLPs, GPT.
I love that.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
I think this is my first podcast of the year.
Big time.
Oh yeah, breaking the ice here. So officially, I mark 2026 as the year of the G's for Omada, GLPs and GPT.
I hear that next year is the year of the H for hospitality, but I don't know.
We'll see. Exactly.
Exactly.
So that's where a lot of our innovation is pointed. Because the market expects that of us. But more importantly, we think it best serves our members, and there's so many cool things to do. I mean, the intricacy in personalizing the experience, like is needed in between visit care. It feels like it never ends. And every year I've always felt that we're only 10% of our journey relative to what our product can and should do. And so there's a ton of excitement. And that's where, as we've kind of shared, we're placing the chips there in a way that's balanced. I mean, we've communicated to the street is like, look, we remain committed to our long-term operating margin targets of 20% plus, long-term, gross margin targets of 70% plus, and are investing in a rubric of recognizing that we feel that we've got a nice moat, and the goal is to make it deeper, while making progress, across the P&L, which has been the spirit if you look in the rearview mirror as well. Yeah,
makes sense. I'm curious, one kind of follow up on that is how do you make the moat deeper? Like in your opinion, how do you get the shovels that expand that gap?
It's the recognition that outside of what we've talked about on how like intricate and hard it is to do what we do anyway, it's the recognition that people's journeys in chronic disease are really N of one. And it's a very hard thing to personalize. And so the end state, the goal for us is like, you've got Grandma Rhoda in Boca Raton signing up for Omada being like, this is weird. Like this program and this thing just feels like it was made for me. Can't explain why, but this is just incredible. This is exactly what I felt like I needed. And then you've got like, Frank, 23 in Seattle, says the exact same thing, and that's a hugely difficult destination to get to. That'll take many, many years, and that's what we've got to get to, because that's what maximizes our chance to have the maximum outcomes, regardless of the population, and and meet the most of the need, which at the end of the day is germane to what we got to do, which is bend the curve of disease.
All right, yeah, the era of the individualized care platform is upon us, right? Thanks for that, Sean. I appreciate that aside. Final icebreaker question for you before we wrap up here. Something I've been asking other folks that I've had on is what's a non-healthcare, piece of content or book or media, whatever it is that you've consumed that has just kind of fundamentally changed how you live your life?
Oh man, well, it's funny. I mean, like I will listen. So technology content is like so fun for me. I mean, obviously I listen to healthcare content. I will listen to literally any single word from Mark Andreessen. It's like I can listen to him for hours and hours and hours. I'll find any podcast. He's one of many, obviously incredible people, but it's like the what he's seen in technology and the way he articulates it and the provocation of his ideas is like so. It's just like so awesome. It's just so awesome. So that's like the information diet that like is kind of alerting. And then for fun, like I've started to read a little bit of Ian Banks, a little sci-fi,
Love it.
yeah, exactly. So but yeah, those are probably two I'd point to.
All right, awesome. Well, Sean, thanks so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today. I learned a lot, and best of luck to Omada in 2026, and I'm sure we'll be having another conversation here soon.
Yeah, my pleasure, Blake. Anytime. And again, I look forward to flying drones with you in short order here.
All right, let's make it happen.